What's up, old school homies? Let's talk about the heyday of remote control cars, the 1980s and 1990s. You can argue it, but I've kind of watched it go through different life cycles. So nowadays, it's not like there is no remote control cars, but you have to realize that there were other categories of remote control cars that came and sort of left when it comes to the different brands that there were, because there was actually different brands that could appeal to different parts of the market. And it's still true today, but a lot of people are still seeking after vintage remote control cars from the 80s and 90s, because similar to the way the scooters were in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of different models. And it's kind of when you see the renaissance of something, they just keep trying to put out more and more models of it. You end up not even remembering them all. Yeah, there is so many remote control car models that you can look through catalogs and just be amazed that one brand can have hundreds of different models. My favorite one was Tamiya. I had a Tamiya, so I guess that has to be my favorite. And I had a Toyota Pre-Runner four-wheel drive truck. It was really cool. And I turned it into a car, and I raced it in the parking lots. I actually won a little trophy and went the whole 9 yards with it. And I could flip it back and race it off-road too if I wanted to, but it wasn't really competitive off-road. It was more competitive on-road because I went to a real off-road track, and you need an off-road car like that's made for off-road to like really compete with others, or you'll get smoked. So after buying the Tamiya, they came out with HPI, which is still a huge brand today. And HPI came out with the RS4, which pretty much dominated all of the touring cars. Four-wheel drive touring cars were such a huge thing in the 80s and 90s. There was brands coming out from Japan that costed like $1,000, and people were buying them just to be at the edge of the competition. And the RS4s and HPIs kind of made my touring car, the Tamiya, which was made with gears and drive shafts. They went to pulleys and belts and graphite. Mine was made of all plastic. So the technology was starting to spin out of control. And what happened was it started costing too much. Now, this wasn't as big of a deal. Like in the 80s and 90s, there were still some people that had money, and now there aren't. So nobody cares anymore. So the whole on-road thing is not as popular anymore, and I liked it better than off-road. I'm just starting to like delve into touring cars, and touring cars did lose some steam because they were too expensive, but there was all kinds of on-road touring cars too, like pan cars. They don't sell very many of those anymore. I had a 12L, a 10L, Team Associated. We drove around Formula One cars, and they were really cheap. You could buy one for about $80, $100. The thing would go faster than your touring car, but it was harder to control. And that's why people didn't latch onto it. They wanted a four-wheel drive car because they were a lot easier to drive. In the 80s, pan cars were really in their rise and fall. And then in the 90s, touring cars were in the rise and fall. I believe today, after going to hobby shops and asking them for parts for my old Bolink pan car, Bolink was like the ultimate budget brand. I bought my Bolink for $20 off somebody. And they still sell Bolink parts today, which are pretty accurate in the body shapes and pretty fast in the basic pan car shapes. But outdated technology, you know what I mean? They even had a dragster that was really cool. Bowlink is such a cool brand for fun, but off-road is the only thing left. Like, some people are telling me that, yeah, you can race Formula One and you can race touring cars and stuff, but Formula One took over as kind of a smaller, more similar to a pan car, and retains the cheaper price sort of thing. I think what keeps people doing Formula One is how good Formula One cars look. They're so accurate as far as like being a model of a car. But yeah, like, you can find parts for your Formula One. I wouldn't say it's going to be as easy to find parts for your old pan car or find a new pan car to love and to find available parts for. Everything's in off-road because kids naturally gravitate to off-road first, and if they get into the hobby, then they get into on-road. So you can find available parts for like Team Associated trucks and Lossy trucks, and that's about it. Like, more Team Associated nowadays too. Like, back in the day, my friend had a Lossy truck and it kept breaking. And I feel like the brand has kind of lost a foothold compared to Team Associated. So I would buy a Team Associated off-road car just to stay a part of the community of off-road enthusiasts that can find parts for their cars and race them and be competitive with them, because they still come out with new models even though they've kind of reached that whole limit of kind of like the Shark, like the Shark has not evolved. Neither has the off-road car very much.